This week on The Real Housewives of Orange County.
10 years I've been on the show and never had this problem. And this comes back, and guess what? Guess what? Now all of a sudden, Slade's pulling his magic.
I know, but Slade wouldn't have known that information because she didn't know it.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be recapping one more time The Real Housewives of Orange County Season 19 Reunion, Part 3. Let's get right into this. Alright, you guys, it is the final part of the reunion. The last two parts were a snooze fest, but I really enjoyed this third part. I thought it was really the only part that was necessary. They could have just given us this third part. Let's get into it because there's a lot to talk about. So we are, again, finally wrapping up this season. It's time. It's been time to do so. So this third part begins with them all watching a segment of what they did on some of their trips, some of the fun they had, going wild, things like that, taking substances, mushrooms, and things like that. And Andy says that it's really fun seeing them have fun. He brings up how Shannon thought she heard the Real Housewives of Orange County music when they were in Amsterdam. She still swears up and down that she heard it. Andy says that the evolution of some of them has been quite drastic. I mean, for Heather and Shannon to be doing drugs essentially on camera, it's a lot. So they kind of all joke about that. Andy also brings up that it was really touching to see the special moment that Heather had in Amsterdam where she released her dad's ashes into the water. She says that it was very cathartic. So then they jump into the final Amsterdam dinner where the whole Gretchen stuff happened. Andy says, Gretchen's immediate reaction was to say, if I liked something, I probably didn't know what I was liking or what it was about. So he asks Gretchen, what did you mean by that? Gretchen says, listen, I want to make it clear that there's no excuse for liking anything that is offensive or has offensive sentiment. I also want to make it clear that I completely denounce anything that is homophobic or transphobic. I was shocked by what everybody was saying and what was brought up to me. Andy says, well, were you familiar with any of these posts? And Gretchen says, no. Then Tamra says, but you followed that account. And Gretchen says, I think we've all been guilty of scrolling at night, going off on Instagram, and maybe I saw something and liked it without seeing the content of the post. Heather says, I get that, but as your friend, when we were sitting at that table and I was sitting across from you, it was surprising that you didn't have a different reaction, and the women had to tell you to come talk to me. The way you handled it was just confusing. Gretchen says, in that moment, I just couldn't believe that they brought this up because that is not fundamentally what I believe in. Tamra says to Gretchen, well, you were following over 200 of these hate accounts that you unfollowed right after Amsterdam. Gretchen says, I truly do apologize if I liked something that was offensive, but that specific post that was brought forward at the table was very upsetting and very suspect. Tamra says, well, why would you follow a guy like that in the first place? Gretchen says, right. And I took steps to go and look at who I was following. I was following, by the way, over 4,000 different accounts on Instagram. And I think my mistake was following too many accounts. I followed many left-wing accounts, many right-wing accounts, politically. But it was also a good lesson. I went back to look at some of these accounts, and if they had posts that were not what I believed in, then I removed them afterwards. I truly don't know why I followed some of these specific accounts. Maybe there was something that they posted that maybe that in that instance I did agree with it, but not with the other things. I don't know. And Andy says, well, I mean, if you are following over 4,000 accounts, I think it's safe to assume that you don't know every single thing that account is posting. Heather then says to Gretchen, I just want to say, I've known you for over 14 years. You've been nothing but kind to me and my family, and I never believed that you were like that or that you had any feelings against the LGBTQ. But there's also been a lot of people who I've had in my life who I found out some very disturbing things that go against my children, and it's shattered me. I do have to say that throughout the years, I have heard rumblings about you and some of this rhetoric, but I've chosen to ignore it. But when I saw these posts and saw that you followed many of these accounts, when you follow so many of these accounts that post this type of stuff, you're just going to be getting hate. So then the ladies, they all sort of begin to talk about the algorithm and stuff like that, which is so true. When you look at certain posts, it won't stop. Those specific types of posts will not stop showing up on your social media. That's why, by the way, you guys, personally, I've made a huge effort on getting off social media as much as I can. It's not, I would say it's a little bit hard to, completely delete everything. It's possible, but obviously, I still have a bit of a social life. So I still do have Instagram and some of these others, but I try my hardest not to go on any of them because you guys, the comments, the posts, the rhetoric that social media has nowadays is just pure hatred and garbage, and just the worst of the worst is on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. So I try my best to be on YouTube, because YouTube is one of those apps where, yeah, you could still find things that aren't the best, but generally it doesn't suck you in such a negative way as other social media apps do. I just wanted to throw that in there since they were talking about that. But anyway, let's get back to this. So Tamra says to Gretchen, have you been unliking things? And then Emily's like, how do you know what she's unliked? What post she has unliked? Then Tamra, you guys, she actually brought out screenshots that she had printed out in pieces of paper. And she's like, well, look, in this post, you made fun of some influencer that's transgender, and it showed that you liked the post, and now it doesn't, so you unliked it. And then Andy says to Tamra, well, didn't she do the right thing then by unliking it? Like, wasn't that the correct thing to do? And I was really glad, you guys, that the people here at this reunion, they were not really drinking the Tamra Kool-Aid. But then Gretchen says that when they left the trip, she remembers Heather saying to her, you're going to need to prove that this wasn't you. So in regards to those original posts that were shown in Amsterdam, Gretchen says, well, guess what, Heather? I did. I hired a cyber analysis company, and I spent thousands of dollars to get a cyber analysis to look at over these posts, and the most egregious post that was shown is not even real. So she pulls out the report. It was like a booklet of what they found. There was a lot of blurring, so we didn't get to see too much of it, but Andy did read a part of the report that said that it might have been AI. Gretchen says that they also did a lot of other research on other accounts, and they did find accounts tied to Tamra. So that's where Tamra's like, oh my gosh, I will sue your ass. Andy says to Tamra, how did you even find the post to begin with? Like, let's go back to that. And Tamra's like, well, it's been posted on social media. The posts were from 2022. Gretchen says, oh, and by the way, Gina, I didn't like that I heard that you and Tamra were plotting this together against me. Andy then asks Tamra, let me ask you this. Why did you bring this up at the very end of the season after you and Gretchen had tried to make up many times? Like, you had resolved everything with her prior to the trip, yet you brought this up at the finale. And Emily says, yes, like, you've had this for a long time. And Tamara's like, no, I was not sitting on it for a long time. I had just gotten it. And everybody's like, no, you knew about it. Like, you were holding on to it. And Tamara was really being backed into a corner at this point. She starts to scream like she normally does. And she says to Gretchen, you're a homophobic bitch, and all of this stuff. And Emily says to Gretchen, why don't you explain a little bit more in detail what you were talking about these accounts being tied to Tamra? And Gretchen says, okay, so in Amsterdam, when these posts were shown, they came from a specific Twitter feed. That Twitter feed that posted this supposed post that I liked is the only place where these posts have ever been seen. Then other accounts started posting it, and those are accounts that are connected to Tamra. And Tamra's like, well, this is all over Reddit, it's all over Instagram. And Gretchen says, yes, it is now, because it was taken from that original Twitter feed. Gina says, well, I would like to say to you, Gretchen, that I'm sorry for bringing this up the way I did. I did think it was necessary to bring up, but I wish I would have brought it up to you first, for sure. And Gretchen says, thank you, because I definitely did feel ambushed and blindsided. Andy asks Tamra, why bring this up to Gina, Tamra? And did you ever think about bringing this up to Heather? And Tamra says, well, me and Heather had conversations about Gretchen's beliefs many times. So this was actually new. One of the things we found out at the reunion is that, and I can actually appreciate this from Heather, they showed some unseen scenes of the season where we saw how, again, during the season, Tamra actually brought up some of Gretchen's conservative beliefs, I guess you could say, to Heather. And it was very clear that Tamra wanted to put Heather against Gretchen, but Heather did not take the bait. In any of those scenes that they showed, Heather was very much like, I'm not even going to go there, I'm out. So I do give credit to Heather for that. So then Emily asks Tamra, why did you put this in Gina's lap? If you wanted to have this out there, why didn't you bring it up? You were the one that had it. So then Tamra says, because I can, because I'm filming a TV show. Why are you always being an asshole to me? And then Emily says, you're an asshole to me all the time. And then Tamra says, you're always poking at me, and I've been nothing but supportive of you. And that's where Shannon says, oh, come on, you called her Shrek for a whole year. And then Tamra's like, yeah, and guess what? I gave her a show on my network. And then Emily says, stop saying that, I'm not on your network anymore. And then Tamra says to Emily, oh, yes, you are, sweetheart, because guess what? They had to put you back on my network because your show tanked. And then everybody was like, whoa, don't say, like, that's mean. And then Tamra says, I've been nothing but nice to her. And then Emily's like, that is not true. You've treated me like ish for years. That was a really good back and forth. And for once this season, I'm kind of Emily's side, only because Emily's arguments were kind of like arguments based in logic. Like, she was being, I think this was like the lawyer in her asking these questions. Why did you give this to Gina? Why didn't you bring it up? Why did you wait? I think those were very valid questions, and Tamra had a very erratic and not so well crafted response. That's why she had to scream. So that was a good back and forth. So then Andy says, you've all seen the episodes of the season, but you have not yet seen the aftermath of Amsterdam. So remember those last 5 minutes of the finale? Well, the ladies didn't get to see that. They're only now going to see it all together, and we're going to see their reactions. I really like that they did that. I like it because we get to see real reaction and raw emotion, and they don't, like, as opposed to seeing the episodes in advance, you know, they don't really have time to, like, plot or to think or what to say. It's kind of like really, really in the moment. So they first take a look at the bus ride from the hotel to the airport after that final dinner where it was everybody except Gretchen. Andy asks Gretchen, because they saw the scene where they all kind of felt bad about it afterwards. And Andy asks Gretchen, what do you think about saying that there was some remorse from some of the ladies the next morning? And Gretchen tears up and says that it makes her feel very good. Andy asks the women, since Amsterdam, have any of you ladies found any reputable sources or articles or anything else that shows that these posts were liked by Gretchen? And Emily says, no, like, we literally all stayed up that last night on our phones and we couldn't find any of those posts. Andy says, Gretchen, why are you crying right now? And Gretchen says, because like I said, that's not who I am. It's not what I believe. Tamra and I made up the night before, and I really thought we had a chance to move forward. She is in tears, and she says that for her, it brought back the feeling of Tamra once again plotting on her, just like she did back in Naked Wasted. And she says how awful it feels to know that there's somebody with other people trying to plot against you. And I think Gretchen's point is very understandable. She says, I'm getting so many death threats over the things that you've been disseminating and saying that it's the truth. And Tamara's like, yeah, I have not. It's everywhere. And then Emily says to her again, people are posting them because they got them currently. Emily also says that there are a lot of accounts that are very pro Tamra who have been reposting these posts a lot. And Andy says to Tamra, I think you should take a look at this cyber analysis report because it does show the link. Andy then shows them the other piece of the finale that they hadn't seen, which is where Shannon, Gina, and Jen received that phone call from somebody claiming that Tamra leaked the entire season to them. Now, remember, the season had just wrapped at that point. There were no promos, there were no commercials, no trailers, nothing. This person, we saw this, but just to remind you all, told Shannon, Jen, and Gina everything that happened during the season, claiming that Tamra told them that Tamra has been leaking this to people in the blogosphere. Now, I know a lot of people online at the time were saying, oh, this is probably Slade. But I thought to myself, some of the things that this person told the ladies that he knew that supposedly Tamra told him, I don't think Gretchen herself even knew some of these things. Because some of these scenes involved Tamra with someone else. It didn't involve Gretchen, so I did think that was one of the reasons why it wasn't them. But anyway, after the ladies, take a look at some of these scenes, they're kind of all flabbergasted. Tamra's first reaction is like wanting to know who the guy was. And then Andy says, when you guys filmed this show, you agreed to be confidential about everything. And Tamra says, it wasn't me. I didn't say anything. This is an ambush. I don't give away storylines. And Jen says, do you not talk to bloggers? Tamra says, of course I do, but not give away stories to them. I know how to go around talking to bloggers. Like, I know what to say. I've been on this show for 15 years and we've never had this problem until you showed up. And she points at Gretchen. She says that this has Slade's name all over it. And Shannon says, well, he also told us that you've been doing this for years. And that's how you get so many bloggers to be on your side, by giving them stories. Tamara says, show me the proof. And then again, she says that this is all Gretchen and Slade. And that's where Andy makes the point that I made. How some of the scenes that this guy mentioned were scenes that Gretchen and Slade couldn't have known about. Shannon also says that in the call, he told us that he knew that I was upset that I didn't get invited to the upfronts. And Tamara's like, well, we all knew that. You told it to all of us, which was true. Shannon was very upset by not being invited to the upfronts. Andy says, why did you guys find this guy credible? And Shannon and Gina are like, oh, well, because he knew everything. Emily says that for her, the biggest hint is that the guy, one of the things that he told them that he knew was that Tamra and Gina were like plotting against Gretchen with these supposed screenshots of posts that she had liked. Knowing that specific part is very suspicious towards her. Tamra says to Gretchen, this was you. Slade must be working real hard to do this. This is all you guys. And Gretchen says, no, it wasn't me, Tamra. You're just mad because you got caught. Shannon says that during the call, the guy also brought up something about some prank call. Kelly Dodd's name was mentioned. That part was a little bit confusing, but at this point, Tamra was just screaming, on my children's life, I've never done that. They ask Gina what she thinks, and Gina pretty much believes it, and she did feel set up by Tamra. Tamra says, you should be upset at Slade. He's the one that set you up. So at this point, Tamra pretty much has Emily, Gina, Shannon, Jen, and Gretchen against her. Tamra is unraveling. She calls Gretchen the C-U-N-T word. She says that this is her and Slade. And Andy again has to reiterate that there was certain things that this guy said that Slade couldn't have known about. Tamra then turns to Gina and says, I didn't do this. I swear on my children's life. Andy says to the other women, did this guy have any proof? And Gina's like, well, the proof is the storylines. I mean, that was the proof. Then they talk about bloggers for a little bit and how talking to these bloggers is causing them problems. Andy says to Tamara, do you think that maybe somebody close to you could be betraying you? And then Tamara is like pretending to cry. I don't know, Andy. I don't know. I can't. And then Heather says, listen, we've all been on this show. I've been here for a long time. I was here before Gretchen. Tamara was here before. things have changed, times have changed, but this has got to stop. It is time to stop coming into the show thinking and strategizing like it's Survivor. Enough with the coming for people's careers, children, and talking to bloggers. That needs to stop. This show is about friendship, it's about conflict and resolution. And I wholeheartedly agree with Heather. And then Emily makes a good point. She says that it's hard enough to be in this group, sharing your life, navigating the dynamics. The people outside are not our friends, she says. So we have to not deal with them and by bringing them in. And I agree with Emily on that too. It's one thing to be appreciative towards the fans. As y'all know, I went to BravoCon and it was great to be with other Bravo super fans. It was great. But there's a difference in being a fan, and there are some people that are way too invested and take this way too personal and literally like want to be in it. Like they want to like curse these women out and send them death threats, and it's a little concerning. So that they're never going to be able to control. It just comes with the territory. Unfortunately, there are a lot of sick people in the world that are just not normal in that way. So that is uncontrollable. But what is controllable is talking to these bloggers. Don't bring them in. I definitely agree with that. So then it is time for final thoughts. Andy asks if they could take one thing back that they did or said from the season, what would it be? Gretchen says that she regrets bringing up the whole Tamra affair of it all. Shannon regrets being so reactive towards Katie, and she says that she's not worse than Alexis Bellino, like she told her. Katie regrets saying something about Jen in a confessional. Heather wishes she could have handled the Jen photo differently. Emily says that she wishes she wouldn't have come as hard towards Katie about her kids and the custody. Gina also regrets the Asian designer comment towards Katie and also regrets making fun of Heather's comedy. Tamra regrets sharing the picture of Jen, and then Jen says that she regrets the video that hurt Katie and making Shannon feel like she didn't appreciate the shower, which she did. She says that she did. Andy asks Jen and Katie, can you two move forward? And Katie says, I hope so. But then Jen's like, well, we're going to have a conversation because just before we got out here, I got a call. And you were hanging out with my friend, Nicole. And Katie's like, yeah? And Jen says, yeah. And you asked her if Ryan was involved in Matt's booking. And Katie says, well, my friend hosted an event and Nicole was there. And Jen says, but Katie, that's not how friendships work. You cannot be out here digging things up about people, trying to get negative information about them. And Katie says, well, she's the one that told me that you don't talk to her and you recommended her for casting. So they went back and forth, but that sounds like something that they should be talking about off camera. And I hope they do. Too much like third party and it's too much. But then they close out. They want Heather to make a toast. And Heather just says that once again, for them to truly be able to move forward, they need to start clean and be clear. They cheer and have their little drink, but Tamara's not doing okay. She keeps saying that this is not true. The other women are taking pictures with Andy. They're closing what they have to do because the reunion is over. But Tamara's going off. She can't find her phone. She then finds it. She's crying. She says to Andy, I didn't do this. And that was it for the reunion. The cameras then follow Tamara. And Tamara is in her dressing room crying. Katie is the only one with her. And Tamara says, I value my job. I wouldn't do this. This is not what this show is about. Gretchen and Slade are dangerous. Katie agrees. And it was kind of funny. They also showed Emily in her dressing room with Gina. And she says to Gina, no wonder Tamara and Katie are French. They're the same. And that was the end of the reunion. Like I said, you guys, I enjoyed this reunion. It gave us more to talk about than the other two. Now, I gotta say, I can't say 100% if Tamara did this or not. I think there might be a possibility that what Andy suggested could be true. Maybe there is somebody in Tamara's life or in her group that is not trustworthy and is leaking this stuff. Again, I don't think this was Slade and Gretchen because Andy said it multiple times and I'll say it multiple times. Certain things that this guy knew, Gretchen and Slade wouldn't have been able to know. Like, they just wouldn't. I think that Gretchen cleared a lot of the negativity surrounding her. I think there's still going to be people out there that will never look past it or whatever the case may be. I thought she handled herself pretty well. And Tamra was just a mess. She was a complete mess. But the reunion, I think, was a good conclusion to this season, which has not been the best. And we definitely need to move forward. Now let's talk about BravoCon, because as y'all know, I was there. Vicki Gunvalson got her orange back. It's been a long time coming. I was so happy. I got to meet her and take a picture with her. And Vicki was just a vibe, you guys. She was like hyping the crowd. She herself was starting off chants. Like she would be like, bring Vicki back. So then the whole audience would say it. And she would be like, who's ready to whoop it up around here? And she was just a blast. Like she was hyping up the crowd. I think she was loving the attention in a good way, because one of the things I really wanted to meet Vicki, but I was secretly just a little bit scared that she might not have been the nicest, because I mean, we know these women, you know, some of them can have their ugly sides at times. So I was a little afraid of her, but was kind of going in with that expectation. But it was a total opposite. When I took a picture with her, she was so nice. And she was just loving the love. Like she loved feeling the love of fans. And she was just so happy that she got her orange back. And I think that season 20 has a great potential. And it has to be good, because it's the 20th season, you guys. 20 years. Wow. I am 22. So literally when I was 2, this started. That's crazy. So that's great. Now, I will say one of the things that surprised me a lot from BravoCon is that seeing people's reactions in BravoCon and comparing that to the online consensus of fans was really interesting, because there were a lot of housewives that like do not receive love on social media, that at BravoCon it was the opposite. They were like drawing some of the biggest crowds. And when I say that, I'm talking about Dorit, Melissa, Bose. Like a lot of these women who receive a lot of negativity online were actually some of the most popular. And this surprised me. Some of the ones that received the most love on social media did not really receive all that love in person. I got to meet Katie, and one of the reasons I got to meet her is because the booth that she had, where she was selling some merch or some collab that she was part of, there was practically nobody there. So it was super easy for me to just be like, hey, Katie, can we take a selfie? And she was like, yeah, of course. She was really nice, though. I got to give it to her. But I don't think she was expecting that lack of attention based on social media. Because if you go on social media, you would think that Katie would be the most popular person on BravoCon. But it really wasn't like that. It wasn't. And even, I remember there was another panel that she did that I was there at. And she didn't receive that much applause. She didn't really receive any questions from the fans. And when she made mention of her friendship with Tamra, I physically, like, I was there. I heard the audience kind of be like, Like, I even heard this girl that was next to me that was like, that's a convenience friendship. So that surprised me. Tamra was not getting any love. She got booed. I was at a panel where this girl pretty much called her a liar. That took a lot of guts from that girl. So yeah, overall, BravoCon was great, but I wanted to kind of mention that and kind of connect it to Orange County, and I hope that kind of made sense, and I kind of hope you guys appreciate that. But you guys, this has been a hell of a long season. When it started off, I thought it came off pretty strong, but after like the 5th episode, it went downhill real quick. But I am excited for the future of the show with Vicki being back. I think that we should have Vicki. I think Tamra should come back, not because I like her, only because of nostalgic purposes. Bring her back, bring Shannon back for nostalgic purposes. Heather Dubrow, of course. I would have Gina only if she didn't come with Emily. And that's pretty much it. I would not bring back Jen. I think her story is pretty much over. We got to meet her. We got to know her children, her story, her divorce. She's with Ryan and they're getting married. I think that's enough. I think we've seen enough. It was whatever. Emily, do I really even need to give an explanation? she's overstayed her welcome. So goodbye, Emily. Goodbye, Jen. Goodbye, Emily. I say goodbye to Katie. I think that Katie had a gang up this season, but I also think the way she went about it, she did not she just went about it the wrong way. She didn't make herself any favors, and I don't think there is a way to move forward without trust. None of the women trust her, and it's not to say I don't like Katie, but I just don't think she would thrive on this show. And for such a significant season, which is going to be season 20, sorry, Katie, but you can go as well. So that was that. I say, so what does that leave us? So goodbye to Jen, goodbye to Emily, and goodbye to Katie. We can have Vicki, Tamra, Shannon, Heather. I say bring back Gretchen as a friend. I say bring back Alexis. You guys are going to get so mad at me, but I want a good show. Bring back Alexis. Bring back some OGs, maybe Joe. And I think there's, again, great potential. Oh, I forgot to say, I also met Gretchen at BravoCon, and she was genuinely the sweetest person ever. I got to have a conversation about her, and it was actually a very personal conversation. And I don't want to get too much in detail with that, but she was really, really sweet. She kind of looked like the best way to describe her is like a doll, like literally, like she looked so fragile, like so fake, but she was very, very sweet. But anyway, you guys, that was the recap for this third part of the reunion. Let me know what your thoughts were. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. As we leave, let me know your thoughts of the season, of the reunion, of this third part. And let me know, what would you like to see for this iconic 20th season? Who should come back? Who shouldn't? Thank you all so much. Thank you so much to everyone who has stuck with me all these, 20 weeks? Wow. Thank y'all. I truly appreciate it. Beverly Hills will be back in 2 weeks. We're definitely going to be watching that. So you guys, love you guys. Catch y'all next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.